Imagine being brilliant at your job, only to realize your own boss built an inescapable cage around your career, all thanks to a loophole in the law. This isn't just a story about a bad boss. It's about a man who wielded a legal document like a weapon, trapping me and my coworkers, slowly draining our hope. You won't believe the lengths he went to, or the one shocking move I made to finally break free. My journey into the belly of the beast started innocently enough in early 2024. I was fresh off a string of contract gigs, hungry for stability, for a place to truly grow. Veridian Solutions, a mid-sized company in our bustling city, seemed like a beacon. Their website boasted about innovation and employee empowerment. The office itself had that new car smell mixed with expensive coffee, all sleek glass and polished concrete. When Mr. Thorne, the CEO, personally offered me the position of lead project coordinator, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot. He was charismatic, had a firm handshake, and looked me dead in the eye, talking about synergy and market disruption. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. The initial onboarding paperwork was a blur of excitement and ambition. There were the usual tax forms, benefit choices, and then, nestled deep in the employee agreement, a non-compete clause. It looked like any other legal jargon, dense, full of whereas and hereinafter. Thorne himself had waved it off with a casual flick of the wrist during my final interview. "Standard stuff, Alex," he'd said, his smile never wavering. "Just protects our proprietary information. You wouldn't want to take our secrets to a competitor, would you?" Of course not, I'd thought, signing without a second glance. Who thinks about leaving a job before they've even started? That signature, innocent as it seemed then, was about to become the invisible chain around my neck, pulling me closer to a cliff edge I never saw coming. It was the quiet click of a lock, a sound I wouldn't hear until it was too late. The honeymoon phase at Veridian lasted about as long as a snowflake on a hot griddle. Thorne's charisma started to peel away, revealing something colder, sharper underneath. It began subtly. Every morning, I'd find a detailed list of tasks on my desk, not from my direct manager, but directly from Thorne. These weren't strategic assignments. They were microscopic to-dos. Ensure all binders are aligned perfectly on shelves. Confirm coffee machine has exact amount of water needed for daily consumption. My brain, itching for real challenges, felt like it was being asked to count grains of sand. My manager, Sarah, a kind woman with tired eyes, would just sigh. "It's just Thorne being Thorne, Alex. He likes to feel in control." Control, I'd learn, was his entire universe. The first big warning bell, a clang in the quiet of my mind, came during a team meeting about project timelines. We were discussing a complex client deliverable, and I offered a suggestion for streamlining a particular workflow. Thorne, who usually just nodded or typed furiously on his laptop, stopped. He looked at me, not with curiosity, but with a gaze that felt like a spotlight pinning me down. "Alex," he said, his voice dropping an octave, "we appreciate your enthusiasm. But remember, Veridian has a very specific way of doing things. Our methods are what make us unique. And," he paused, his eyes narrowing slightly, "our methods are protected. We invest heavily in our people, and in return, we expect loyalty and adherence to our established processes." He didn't explicitly mention the non-compete, but the implication hung in the air like a thick fog. It was a veiled threat, a reminder that my ambition could be seen as a transgression. My stomach clenched. I felt a chill, like someone had just walked over my grave. That innocent signature on a piece of paper suddenly felt less like a formality and more like a collar. But that was just the beginning. The invisible leash Thorne had on us quickly became visible, then tangible, then suffocating. It started with the tracking software. Thorne announced it in an all-hands email, framed as a way to optimize productivity and enhance collaboration. Everyone knew it was a lie. The software, installed on every company laptop, monitored keystrokes, mouse movements, active applications, and even took screenshots at random intervals. It was like having a tiny Thorne clone peering over your shoulder 24/7. My desk, once a place of creative energy, became a sterile cage. Every time I paused to think, my mind raced with worry. Is Thorne watching? Does he think I'm slacking? Sarah, my kind, weary manager, bore the brunt of it too. One afternoon, I saw her sprint back from the restroom, her face flushed. Later, she confided in me, her voice a hushed whisper. "He called me, Alex. Thorne called me, asking why I was away from my desk for 12 minutes. 12 minutes! He said my unplanned downtime was impacting team efficiency." My jaw nearly hit the floor. This wasn't just micromanagement. It was an invasion. It was a complete disregard for human dignity. Productivity plummeted, not because people were slacking, but because they were terrified. We moved like robots, each click and scroll a performance for our unseen overseer. The joy drained out of our work, replaced by a constant low hum of anxiety. My heart felt heavy, a stone in my chest, knowing this digital noose was tightening, and that non-compete clause still sat in my mental file, a silent, menacing guardian of my misery. The next escalation came in the form of broken promises and an ever-increasing workload that led straight to burnout. Thorne, who once championed work-life balance in recruitment brochures, seemed to relish seeing us grind. Projects piled up, each with impossible deadlines. We were told that big bonuses and generous raises were just around the corner, contingent on hitting these ambitious targets. We worked nights, weekends, holidays. The office lights glowed late, a testament to our collective exhaustion. I'd see Mark, another project coordinator, looking gaunt, his eyes bloodshot, his usual witty banter replaced by weary sighs. One Monday morning, Mark wasn't at his desk. Sarah informed us, with a somber look, that he was out sick, stress-related. It was an open secret. I started canceling plans with friends, missing family dinners. My partner, Liam, noticed the change. "You're not yourself anymore, Alex," he'd said, tracing the dark circles under my eyes. "You're always so tense, always checking your phone." He was right. My phone had become another limb, a constant reminder of the digital shackles. The thought of looking for another job flickered like a dying ember, but then the non-compete clause would rise up in my mind, a dark cloud blotting out any hope. That signed paper felt like concrete boots, dragging me down, telling me there was no escape, no brighter horizon. Thorne would walk through the office, a predator surveying his weary prey, often stopping to loudly praise the dedication of those still hunched over their desks at 8 p.m. He'd even send out late-night emails, subtly shaming anyone who hadn't responded within minutes, implying they lacked commitment. It was a twisted game, and we were all losing. Just when I thought Thorne couldn't possibly get worse, he added favoritism to his toxic cocktail. A new hire, David, joined our team. David was charming, gregarious, and seemed to have an instant rapport with Thorne, a rapport no one else could ever achieve. Suddenly, David was getting all the plum assignments, the high-profile clients, the praise in team meetings. His ideas, often thinly veiled copies of things I or others had suggested weeks earlier, were heralded as genius. David, despite his lower output, somehow seemed exempt from the constant digital surveillance. I remember one particular incident vividly. I had spent weeks developing a detailed proposal for a crucial client, poring over data, crafting compelling narratives. During the presentation to Thorne, David interrupted me, pitching a similar, less thorough concept, but with a flashy infographic he'd clearly whipped up in an hour. Thorne cut me off mid-sentence. "David, that's brilliant. Alex, can you integrate David's fresh perspective into your proposal? We want to make sure it has that modern edge." My blood ran cold. My work was being stolen, dismissed, and I was being asked to polish someone else's cheap imitation. After the meeting, I tried to approach Thorne privately, framing it as a concern about equitable project allocation. He leaned back, a smug look on his face. Alex, David brings a certain youthful energy. We expect full dedication here, and remember your commitment to Veridian. Your non-compete means your professional future is tied to ours. Don't forget that. The words were a slap in the face. The non-compete wasn't just a document, it was his favorite weapon, always drawn, always ready to strike. The frustration simmered beneath the surface of our forced smiles, but eventually began to boil over. Alex started secretly chatting with other frustrated colleagues, like Sarah and Mark. We'd sneak into the empty conference room during lunch or grab a quick coffee outside, whispering like conspirators. "Have you ever felt so trapped?" Sarah asked one day, her voice barely audible. Mark nodded, his face etched with worry lines. "I tried applying for a job at Ascentech," he admitted, "just a feeler. They were interested until they saw my current employer. Their HR knew about Thorne, said he's notorious for enforcing non-competes. He was a cornered animal, desperate. But I stood firm, my voice surprisingly steady. "Mr. Thorne, my attorney has reviewed my contract. You know as well as I do that a non-compete requires adequate consideration. Beyond that, your attempts to coerce me into falsifying reports, your documented micromanagement, and the creation of a hostile work environment completely invalidate any claim you might have. I have documented everything." I even quoted a specific section from the state labor law Ms. Hayes had highlighted. The words, once meaningless jargon, now felt like solid shields. The fear in Thorne's eyes slowly morphed into something else, genuine shock. His mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. He truly believed he had me, had all of us, trapped in his little kingdom. His control was absolute, his non-compete ironclad. The idea that an employee, someone he'd dismissed as a cog in his machine, could stand up to him with actual legal leverage utterly shattered his illusion of power. His face was a mask of stunned disbelief, confusion, and a raw, humiliated fury. The man who had reveled in our fear, who had wielded the law like a club, was now speechless, his empire of fear suddenly crumbling around him. My escape wasn't just a resignation, it was an earthquake in his carefully constructed world. I walked out of that office, leaving him gaping, and for the first time in a very long time, I could breathe. Leaving Veridian Solutions wasn't like stepping into sunshine and rainbows. The emotional and physical toll of my time under Thorne's thumb was deep. I was exhausted, my confidence shaken, and the lingering anxiety took time to fade. But every day outside those walls felt like a victory. I found a new job relatively quickly, a company with a genuinely supportive culture where work-life balance wasn't just a buzzword, and where my contributions were valued, not stifled. The fear of that non-compete, which had haunted me like a ghost, was finally gone. My experience taught me a profound lesson. Never let fear keep you trapped. Knowledge truly is power. It taught me the importance of knowing your rights as an employee, of reading every line of every contract, and of understanding that even seemingly ironclad agreements have weaknesses. It also taught me the immense value of prioritizing my mental health, of listening to that quiet voice telling me something was wrong, and of finding the courage to stand up for myself. I might have been burnt out, lost, and afraid, but I found my footing. My former colleagues, Sarah and Mark, eventually found their own exits, some inspired by my bold move, others just worn down to their last nerve. The empire of fear Thorne had built started to unravel brick by painful brick. Life after Thorne wasn't just about finding a new job. It was about reclaiming myself, rebuilding my self-worth, and finally breathing free.